John actually taught me to shear sheep. On my very first course, it was John. My first 2 or 3 courses were all John.
This tractor started going down the hill sideways, and I'm just gripping on this steering wheel. Well, I went right through the hedge at the bottom of the field, and there was a bit of a 10-foot drop onto the main road. And unknown to us, we were away with a trailer with 3 wheels on it, right up by the polish. And I don't know how they never stopped us.
I've been Cammy.
I've been Iona.
And we are both
Fed by farmers.
Iona was just saying that she doesn't actually need me anymore and she was going to start her own podcast. So it's like, right, let's hear it. Literally just said that. Someone wrote a comment asking if Iona had a podcast. This is her podcast. What are you talking about? That's like someone asking your wife if you've got a man. It's like, obviously she's got a podcast. Obviously it's this one. Don't ask again.
I know, but some people would have one on their own as well.
What, we Side Hustle podcast?
Side Hustle podcast.
I'm thinking about it every day. Every day I'm thinking about it.
No, don't touch me.
Nah, I wouldn't do that. Should we start this one?
Yes.
We've got a whole interview to get through here. It's about an hour and a half long.
Wrap it up.
But you said you're going to do it yourself, so let's hear it.
Right, okay, well, hello and welcome to the Fed by Farmers podcast with me, Iona Murray.
And me, Cammy Wilson.
Oh, that felt like, that felt like writing with the hand that you wouldn't normally write with.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Just like not right.
Yeah, okay. Terrible analogy, but
Why?
guys don't use that analogy, but I get what you're saying. I can hardly write with the hand I do write with. You've seen my handwriting. It's absolutely shocking. Like, it's like my brain can't reach that far. Like, by the time it gets, like, my handwriting at my elbow is class.
Yeah.
But see, by the time the messages get to the end of the fingers, oh, it's just shocking. Mm-hmm. What have you got to tell us this week? Who you got to thank?
Oh, Crystalyx and Animax.
Thank you very much to Crystalyx and Animax Tracesure, Bolus, and Easy Cal as well. Use a bit of Easy Cal through lambing time. Thank you for them for their continued support of the podcast. You guys, you'll hear us talk about them all the time, of course, because this, genuinely, it wouldn't be happening without their support, because it takes a lot of time and effort to, it doesn't take any time and effort really, it takes time but no effort to sit here and talk absolute nonsense, but the effort's in the editing and pulling the whole thing together. So thanks very much to them. We'll hear a bit more about them later in the podcast. We should keep, at the start of each one, we should give Cars a shout out as well.
Okay.
Do you want to do that, Miss? I don't need you anymore.
We should also say thank you to Cars Billington, who are now stocking the full Fed by Farmers range. No, not the full one. That's wrong.
Not the full range, but most of it.
Of it.
About 90% of it is in the Cars Billington stores. So 30 stores around Scotland and the north of England. Drop into your local store. Tell them you love the podcast, and if you fancy a wee flutter on something, then go for it.
Flutter? That's an interesting
Yeah,
word
flutter's
to
more.
use.
I think that's because the Grand National was on last week.
Do you bet?
Do you know, I don't, but I did on the Grand National.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, do you know, it's like a wee thing we do every lambing, although we missed the start of it this year because problems, but we always have a wee bet on the Grand National.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, like my mum picks a horse, I pick a horse. Well, everybody picked a horse.
Yeah.
And I just used was it Bet365 or something?
Right, okay.
And we all put like a tenner each on a
nice.
horse. And nobody, Marissa won.
Did she?
Yeah, she won like £80 or something.
Oh, wow.
She picked the favourite.
Oh, well.
I know, I wish I picked
Paid
the favourite.
off, yeah.
I know, it really did. So it'd be a sore one for the bookies, actually, the favourite winning, because it was about 7-1 favourite. So by a lot of money lost for the bookies, I would think. But yeah, are we going to introduce this week's
I think we should.
guest? I think it's about an hour and a half, this interview.
Yeah,
so
it's a long one.
let's introduce it. Who is it this week?
John Andrew this week.
It's John Andrew from Rowenson Farm at Crishill. John is part of the Monitor Farm programme. He is the man that taught me to shear sheep. He is, I'm trying to think what other ways to introduce him. Beef and sheep farmer. They've got 2 or 3 farms that they either own or rent, and yeah, he goes into all that. Mm-hmm. He goes into how he split his business with his brother and how they separated the business, and lots of chats about shearing. I'm going to do a wee warning again here.
Go on.
I talk too much. Now, listen, I know people say I love the podcast and that's what I love about the podcast, but this time I definitely talk too much. And someone said, again, Jim, who gives me the feedback, said a great point again. Do you know what it is? It's like when we did it with Kate was good at holding her own, but John's far too polite and he lets me talk too much.
Right, okay.
John's need to be more bullish and shut me up.
Right.
Because I'm too bullish.
Okay.
But we're working. Hey, it's still good crack. Like, calm down. Everybody, calm down.
You calm down. You brought it up.
I know, because I'm getting self-conscious now.
I know. I can feel
I never
it
was
from
before
you.
until I started this podcast. But it's like when I listen to it back.
You can hear it.
Well, I want to listen to John. I don't want to listen to me because I know my thoughts.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like, Cammy, shut
I know,
up.
but you're working on it.
Yeah, I'm in rehab for it. So anyway, without further ado, John Andrew. That's a good wee poem,
really
really
good.
okay.
That was
I've
really
practiced that.
So, John, how are you today?
Not bad, thank you.
Good. Yeah, I can't do it.
Jesus Christ!
Was it me? Is it something I said?
What was that reaction for you, John? It just threw her. She was expecting a moan straight for the start. I said to Iona there, Iona, you start the podcast. I always start it, and I talk far too much, but it's just too much pressure for you. So I'll do it. John, thanks for joining us here at Fed by Farmers Studio. What do you think of the place?
Oh, unbelievable. Never been here before, and I'm pretty impressed. So this is where it all happens, eh?
It is. This is where the magic happens. We've got you down. We're going to cover a few topics with you here. I want to cover things. Well, I want to hear about your farming story. It's an interesting one. Hear a bit about the good old days of sheep shearing. Bit about, well, not succession as such, but splitting a business as you've done. And of course, this year, maybe the hot topic while you're here, you're part of the Monitor Farm programme in Scotland. And we'll talk a bit about what that is. So should we start from the start, Iona?
Yes, right from the very beginning.
So you're relaxed now that I've done the...
I know.
You're settled
I know,
into it now. It's
I
a lot
know.
of pressure.
Well, you didn't give me any intro to it. I was just boom.
What are you going to do when I'm not here?
Oh, it was flying.
It'd actually be better if I wasn't here, is the
Yeah.
reality. Yeah, right. I'm not going to be jumping in as much. Relaxed. One thing we say before we start, that's me jumping in straight away already, talking too much, is that John and I know each other. You'll find that the people I know really well are the ones I jump in at all the time
Yeah.
because I know them well and how they're going to react. And John and I know each other very well. And one thing I love about going to, whether it's scan sheep with John or do anything, is you get a right good debate.
Okay.
And John's the kind of guy, and I like to think I'm this guy as well, that he's prepared to have his mind changed on things.
Yeah.
He doesn't, like, you don't just think you're right.
You haven't spoken to my wife, have you?
You know when to admit defeat, maybe that's why. But, like, that's one thing I like about having a debate with John is, like, you're not just like, I'm right and you're wrong and that's the way it is. Like, you'll have an opinion, but you'll listen to another view and alter your opinion. And there's an old, I think it's Albert Einstein quote, that intelligence is having the ability to change your mind.
I like that.
There you go.
There you go.
That's nice.
So there we go, John. We started with a compliment, all downhill from here. Iona, do you want to ask me your first question?
Yeah, just the question I asked about 5 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
before I butted in that I said I wasn't going to do.
So, where did you grow up, John?
Well, I grew up in the family farm down at Cross Hill, Rowinston.
Right.
As far as I know, it's been in the family for about 200 years.
Oh, wow.
It would be originally tenanted. I think my grandfather would buy it back in the 1950s off the estate. And then my father farmed it, added a bit to it, and then it passed on to my brother and myself when my dad passed away.
So, is that an option then when a tenancy, before tenancies end, the estate can make the decision to sell?
Well, see, what would happen back in the day, they talked about death duties.
Right.
In the estate, I suppose back in the 40s and 50s, you talked about this in an earlier podcast, back in the 30s, it would just about give farms away to tenants. Mm-hmm. And that's when a lot of the traditional tenancies came in.
And was that wartime?
Well,
talked
post
about
First
the-
World
Yeah.
War.
They
Yeah.
talked
When they
about
were-
the Depression, didn't they, in the 1930s, I think?
Yeah.
Aye. And at that time, you could have got farms 10 a penny because nobody wanted them.
And why was that?
I don't know, things must have just been bad.
Yeah.
We would have a serious gap in the amount of loss of life in during World War One. There'd be a big shortage in
Yeah, of actual
young
people.
workers coming through, I suppose, that would need filled. And yeah, I do think back then as well, like landowners were richer.
Oh, I mean,
You know.
that estate that our farm would be on, well, our hill farm's still on that estate, actually. And back in the day, they would have foresters, they would have a working sawmill, you know, they'd have
Gamekeepers.
staff
Other
for it,
things,
gamekeepers,
yeah.
gamekeepers as well. There must have been enough income from the tenanted farms in that time to pay all these other people, you know.
Well, most of it was probably wealth from other ventures, you know, whether it's overseas trading or, you know, a lot of these wealthy landowners, their money was coming from elsewhere.
Aye.
Yeah,
You know,
it wasn't actually the farming.
Yeah, it wasn't actually a fact. You know, you're touching, they'd have gardeners, you know, they'd probably have a squad
definitely.
of 10 gardeners
Aye.
keeping the place minted, whereas you just can't. These, although they're still wealthy, it's the old thing. They're majorly asset rich, but most of them are probably quite cash poor. is the reality.
So then that's when they would maybe make the decision to sell.
Well, see what would happen when the old laird passed away. They talked about death duties.
Right.
So they'd have to pay death duties to the government, and the only way they could do that would be to sell 2 or 3 farms. So every time a generation of the lord passed away, they would have to, there would be certain tenants who would get the chance to buy a farm, and they would buy them at tenants' value. So you'd be silly not to buy them at that time. So it would be my grandfather would get the chance to buy I think it would be back in the 50s,
Right.
1950s. He would buy the farm off the estate then.
And what kind of farm? Is it beef and sheep?
At that time, it was a dairy farm. It was Brownston itself was about 150 acres, and it was just when I'm stepping forward a wee bit here. But when I was one of 5, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
Right.
My older brother, he's a mechanic. I've got a sister that's a midwife, and my brother James and me were always in actual fact, I wasn't supposed. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think I was supposed to be the farmer.
Why not?
I was seen probably as being quite bright at school. Mm-hmm. And I think
he's criticised himself by giving himself a compliment.
like that. And I think in the grand scheme of things, my father thought, right, James, he was the youngest, he was always keen in the farm, he'll be the farmer. And the generation before, like my father's brother, he'd gone away and become a banker.
Right, okay.
And it was always talked about when I was a wee boy, you'll go and become a banker, you'll follow your Uncle Ian and all this. And really my heart wasn't in it, I just wanted to be a farmer. So when I come home to farm, that kind of complicated the thing, because all of a sudden those 2 sons there, like.
So was there a gap between school and going home to farm, or were you just
I
straight
went
into it?
when I left school, I went to Auchencruven. I did a higher diploma.
Right.
And I was always keen in stock, but while I was there, I actually went in the first year in the summer holiday, I went down to Essex and I worked on a big arable farm. I was only 18-year-old.
Right.
And I went and drove one of the combined 1,500 acre of wheat and about 300 acre oilseed rape. Me and the farm manager drove one, and I drove the other. I was just trusted, he taught me how to do it, and I was 18-year-old and I did that.
Wow.
And I always remember when we went down there to start with, I'd never really earned a wage before. Mm-hmm. It was just pocket money when you're at home. Mm-hmm. And doing with this promise that I was taken on to drive the combine. Well, we went down about 6 weeks before the harvest started. So my first job for that whole first week was rogging the wheat. You went round and you walked through the wheat, and you had a bag round your neck, and you pulled out what they call the sterile brome, actually.
Right, okay.
You pulled it out and you took it to the end rigs, and then you made a wee fire and you burned it. Well, that first week, I was the whole week just walking the fields with other member of staff, like doing that. But see, at the end of that week, at the end of the days, you get your wages in cash at the end of the week, and you get your pay slip. And it was £5 an hour I got. And I got something like £180 in my hand that week. And I just looked at it. I'd never had a wage like that before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the richest you've ever been.
So after that, it started the harvest, and we worked for about 7 in the morning to 12 at night. And I tell you something, earned a fair bit of cash.
How did you find it driving the tractors?
I quite liked it. Like I was always a stocksman at heart, I think, but it was just something different, and it was good to see, another side of. And I think it is in the grand scheme of things, I think it's good to work for other people before you just go and do your own thing. You can.
Absolutely is. That the most progressive farmers will be sending their kids away, are trying to, some farms can't afford to lose the staff. They need the son or daughter there. But yeah, if you can send them away, like yourself sending David up to work at Logie Durno.
I know.
I sending, I know David, he had to want to go. But, like going up to work at Logie Durno, like that's a great place. You have to...
What is it?
Logie Durno, it's a big farming operation up in Aberdeenshire.
Right.
Sell 1,000 tups a year at an average of £1,000. So,
oh wow!
Yeah, they're a big operation. They're earmarked for the podcast next time he's down here.
Bigger than the Muirkirk Blackie boys.
Aye.
They still got a mention.
That's it.
Still got a mention.
What time is that at there? There we go. It's a new record. We always mention the Blackies on here. But yeah, so like you sending David up there, and I always think, when my boys are older, if they're keen in farming, of course, and I hope they are, but like you want to use them as like wee spies, like not like covert or anything like that. Just being totally open and honest. They're going up there to learn. They're going up there to get as much information as they can off of you and bring it back home, like a spy. Yeah. But they're open about it. They're a spy. So that's like sending David up there to Logie Durno. You want him to come back and tell you. You want to hear everything they're doing.
Yeah,
that's why you send your kids to these places, and then they have their eyes opened as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I'll be sending Jock everywhere.
It's a bit like the shearing, Cammy. you go around different farms.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of good things. You see some things you think, oh, I'm actually not so bad at home, you know.
Yeah.
But you get to work with a lot of different. You see a lot of different systems operating and different sheep, and it's good. You're always learning, like. Always learned a lot.
And shearing is one great way of that. But I tell you, scanning's a great one too, because scanning, you're really seeing what works.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? You're really seeing the type of sheep, the number of lambs they're having, the condition they're in. And, you know, they'll tell you, oh, these are running in this crop or that crop. We use this tup. And you start to form a picture in your own mind of actually what is working around the country.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, no, it's espionage. Farming espionage. That's what the kids are for. But you touched on shearing there. When did that come into the picture? You went back to farm. Well, at this point, it was you and James.
Me and James, when I left the school, I always remember my father saying to James and me, so you're both coming home to the farm. How are you going to make a living? You know, that's what he said. How are you going to make a living? And at that time, we didn't have a lot of sheep around, maybe 150 cross ewes, and there was always boys come in and sheared them.
Right.
Just boys, they can run the wee mini pickup and they set up their shearing stand and they just worked with a flexi and the four of them. And they come in at 6 o'clock at night after they'd done their day's work just for a bit of beer money. And I was, again, there was something about that. I just quite liked it. And I always wanted to shear sheep. And eventually I managed to convince my dad to buy me a shearing machine. And I went on a course. And it was tough going for a while, like. It was tough going. But at that time, and then James got started too, and it just snowballed. And all of a sudden it just snowed all, and we had a great big run. But see, at that time, there wasn't really any contractors in Ayrshire, because just about every farm sheared their own sheep at that time.
Right, okay.
And it was just sort of changing around it, you know, labour was getting shorter on farms and more people got contractors in to shear their sheep, and we just built up a run, you know, more or less from scratch.
So how did that go? So you bought your machine, how much would that be at that time?
Probably back in the day, maybe about £400 all in, like.
Right, okay.
Or £500 maybe.
And then you did your course.
The very first course I did was it was a training board. The training board used to do courses way back in the day. It was Alec McCaskey, and I can't remember another fella that was on it, but he took a course up at Craig at Straighton, and always been on that. Oh, I struggled, like, because my father actually had a shearing machine. He had one of the very first shearing machines when they came out, and he bought it in partnership with our next door neighbour, and they shared it. Right. And I'm not joking, you want to see that? I wish I'd still got that handpiece, because it's probably a collector's item. This great big chunky handpiece, you know. But he
rattled like hell.
I probably did. But my dad, he just sheared sheep like he did with hand shears. He just sheared down one side and turned it round about, and a lot of kicking and screaming and and he got the wool off. But it was he never actually taught me how to shear a sheep.
The proper bone
proper
technique.
Way. Yeah. So I went on that course, and then I was still at college, so I didn't really get a chance to do much.
Right.
So
this is Ag College, or
I went to Auchincruive College. Yep. When I was there, I did a couple of lambings through in the borders, and I went back. The next year I went to Essex, and I worked down in Essex for a year. That was in an arable dairy farm down there. So then I decided when I left college I was going to go to New Zealand.
Right, okay.
So when I went to New Zealand, I couldn't really shear, you know.
So you'd done your course at this point, but you hadn't really.
I just qualified. I just got my qualification, and I was going to go to New Zealand for a year. So I went away. And there was a farm labour business out there, and they'd come to Auchincruive and they were looking for folk to go out. So I signed up to them. And at that time, believe it or not, if you'd asked me when I was 20-year-old what I wanted to do, I would have said I wanted to milk cows.
Really?
You know, we're a dairy. We'd only a very small herd at Roundston. We had 30 cows, and we're still in the buyer. And probably in the 1950s, that was par for the course, you know. But in the 1970s and that, there was a lot of grants available, and a lot of the farms round about us would put up a cubicle shed in a milking parlour, and probably the standard cow would maybe be 100 cows. But I don't know, my father didn't go down that road. He put up a slatted shed and things like that under the grant scheme, but he never really upgraded the dairy. So we were stuck with these 30 cows, and he always thought that would be a base for us to start off with. But then the milk quotas come in, just as we were leaving school, milk quotas come in. And you just couldn't do anything, like young folk just couldn't get on at all. It was all right for the bigger dairies because they had a wee bit of economy of scale and they could buy a bit of quota. But see, for somebody in our position, it was just terrible. You just couldn't do anything, like. And it was a kind of lesson to me, because I thought, right, my dad kind of got left, no fault of his, like, but he kind of missed the boat there and they get left behind. You know, all these farms that had 100 cows with a cubicle shed, they've all upgraded again. They're either finished now or they've upgraded again. But for us to go from milking cows in the byre to a modern setup, it was just
Too big a
far
leap.
too much, plus you had the milk quota.
Yeah.
So that's when we kind of started shearing sheep as well, like, for a second income. And also just at that, well, that should be after I went to New Zealand and I worked in these dairy farms and I actually enjoyed it. You know, it got to the stage that if you were trusted and you knew what you're doing, the farmer would go away for a month's holiday and they'd just send a couple of us in and we would look after the whole farm. We milk the cows and shift all the fences. And
But then
some
that's
of the
how
farms
you
in the
learn.
South Island, we used to do the irrigation.
Oh, wow.
So that was good. And then, so I was out there, I'm going to go to shearing school. So I went to shearing school for a week. And I tell you, that was hard going, like, because I couldn't really shear.
Like, you're only fit for it.
I was 21-year-old, but I couldn't really shear.
Yep.
You know? So I think I got my bronze certificate or something, like. And then I come back and I says, right, I'm going to go back to New Zealand in 2 years' time and I'm going to shear out there.
Right, okay.
You know something, I never
Never
come
got
round,
back.
like. I never come round. Well, my dad wasn't so fit. His legs were starting to bother him. He had a lot of bother with arthritis, like, and he had a couple of hips. And you can something you thought you were indispensable, you had to be at home. But see, when you think back, you didn't really need to.
No.
You kind of
coulda
could have gone away.
You could have
looking
got a
back-
boy. You could have got a boy in
Aye,
to cover.
exactly.
Aye.
Could have gone
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
You can. But
But it's
James,
like-
like my brother James, he went out to New Zealand for a season. Like, he did a season out there.
Aye, shearing.
Aye.
Aye, yeah. But I suppose it's one of those things. It's maybe when your heart's not quite on going away, it's easy to make an excuse like that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, do you really think your heart?
no,
You know,
aye,
it's
aye.
kind of way you actually like being at home, maybe, and it's you enjoy being on the farm at home.
Well,
so
that's
it's like,
it
I need it here.
Aye,
I need
that's
it here.
That's it.
You know what I mean? It's an easy way to convince yourself.
But looking back, there's so many things you would do different if you had the chance to do it again. Like, but you'd still make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. New Zealand's my big one.
Aye,
You know, like I don't have many regrets at all. I've been very lucky with a lot of things that have happened in my life, but one of them is, you know, I obviously joined the police and went that route, but I'd love at 18 rather than joining the police. And it's got me to where I am, of course, but I'd love to just have picked up a handpiece and seen where that took me.
Yeah.
As well, like, because well, you know the stories you speak to boys, you know, like, you know, Archie's always got great stories, and Richie Robin, the stories they tell you from New Zealand and Australia and stuff, it's a life lived.
Oh, I do.
Those boys that have been about.
Yeah.
Get ready for a successful turnout and choose Crystalyx this grazing season. Spring grass is typically fast growing and lush. However, it can contain high levels of potassium, which reduces magnesium availability. Crystalyx Cattle High Mag incorporates multiple magnesium sources and is proven through trials at Glasgow University to help maintain normal blood magnesium levels. With 35% sugar and a unique blend of vitamins, minerals and trace elements, Crystalyx Cattle High Mag supports optimal performance at turnout.
But see, the boys nowadays, the courses that are available to them's unbelievable. Like, you know, compared to what we
Really?
had in our day, you'll go in a course when you're 15, 16-year-old, and you'll learn how to shear properly right for the outset. And there's so many instructors, whether it's the wool board or some of the private instructors, there's so many instructors out there that are really good at what they do.
Yeah.
Eh,
It's an absolute fine art now, isn't it?
Oh,
Like,
it is.
it's
See,
been-
when the very first course I went in the training board, I was just thinking about this the other day. When we started, they talked about the bone belly. Well, obviously, Godfrey Bowen had come across from New Zealand years before and taught folk the bone method of shearing sheep. And that very first course we went on, when we were taking the belly off, we were taught to go down the right-hand side with one blow first,
Right,
and then tuck that leg in, and then then you come back to the left-hand side and you took your 3 blows off and the belly come off.
right.
And they called that the bone belly.
Right.
That was the way Godfrey Bowen must have done
Initially
to start
started
with.
it.
Aye.
Yeah. Okay,
And,
so
and
they
then they moved on to what they call the spear belly, which is what we do now.
right. Okay, so actually, the Godfrey Bowen initial technique was a bit different than.
Aye, the belly was different.
Aye,
Probably
interesting.
one or two, but the whole thing keeps moving
Oh,
on.
it's
Like,
totally-
you know,
I would
Does
argue-
it? Does it change all
Well,
the
Well,
time?
the principle of the order you do things is definitely the same, but the way they've refined the undermine, the stepping up the neck, you know.
Right. Okay.
Every time you get a world record holder or a world champion who's a master of his craft, he'll add a wee tweak to it and say, actually, you do this, it's a wee bit quicker or a wee bit better.
Right. Okay.
It's like a lot of things in sport, you know, rugby. Now, they're constantly refining
Oh,
the
definitely.
type of training they need to do, the way they run with the ball, the way they pat. They're tweaking things all the
Yeah.
time. And shearing's no different. But yeah, that would be the courses nowadays. You're right. you know, this, whether it's with the wool board, and you've got, you know, guys that have been in world championships like Kieran McCulloch sort of heading it up just now. You've got yourself, you're doing a lot of beginner and advanced course.
I wouldn't say, well, that's what I was going to say. I started instructing when Colin McGregor set up the kind of Scottish instructors who wanted me to do Ayrshire.
Right.
And I take guys and I can pretty good, like I can bring them through to probably a good silver. But I just feel, because I just haven't got the experience of being abroad and, you know, just have been right up there, if it's something more advanced, I just like Kieran and that take over, you know.
Yeah.
But I think I was told once, you probably, I don't know if you mind, Cammy, you know, Kiffer, Chris Reid. Well, Chris started
You'll
shearing.
love this, I shout out.
Chris started shearing with us as a boy, like, and I remember he said one day, I see John, he's a bloody good shearer, but his gear's shite. And you know something? He was back. I don't know if he was bang on with the first bit either. But
the gear was definitely
bang on with the second bit. But because that was another thing, when we started shearing, we were the contractors, like.
Yeah.
And we were having to do work at home, and that was our problem. We couldn't really get started early in the morning. You know, by the time we were milking cows in the days, and I used to do the milking in the morning, and then go away, get a breakfast, and James would be running around checking the sheep were all right. And by the time you travel to the farm, it might have been 9 o'clock before we get started. We would work later at night, you know.
Aye, you love that.
And then there was always something, you went home at night, or your dad was on the phone and saying, there's a cow calving or something. And you hadn't time. By the time you organised your next day's shearing or your 2 or 3 days shearing.
And that was back in bloody landline days, so you'd come in, pick up the landline phone.
Exactly. Exactly.
I honestly do not know how shearing runs were organised back in the day with landline phones.
You didn't know anything different though.
I know, but like, God, we're so lucky now. Quick flick a text message, or there must have been a lot. There's a lot of standing about waiting now for shearers. There must have been a lot of standing about waiting. Like, I'm not saying you were like this, but you know, we'll talk about James a lot in this podcast because for anyone that doesn't know, I started shearing. John actually taught me to shear sheep. On my very first course, it was John. My first 2 or 3 courses were all John. And then Colin McGregor and other people got involved as well. But James was who I actually went to shear for on the trailer. And I think about some of the time folk spend waiting for him when he's got a mobile phone. I can't imagine like folk just standing for 3 days. Sheep been in for 3 days. It was definitely Tuesday, he said. But yeah, it's another thing.
That was another thing back in the day when we started. There was very few places you could go to and get a full day shearing. You know, in that time, there were a lot of dairy farms. You know, a lot of dairy cows about. And as I say, the standard thing was maybe 100 cows in the farm, and you might have 200 or 250 cross ewes.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until you get later in the season you get into the kind of hill sheep, you could maybe actually get 700 or 800 sheep on one day. And even some of the bits, they wanted you to come and do a couple of hefts one day and then come back. So there was a lot of moving about. You know, we would probably only shear 8 hours in a day, but you'd probably still be shearing at 8:30 at night.
Yeah,
you can't get your 8 hours because there's that much shifting about.
But it's still kind
of. And if you got behind with your first place, and as you say, you'd name mobile phones, you're running to a phone to try and say to the guy, "I'm running a wee bit late," and then your last guy you're going to do 100 cross hogs for at night. Can you could be a couple of hours late?
Yeah, a couple of hours. You're putting it mildly. Yeah, it's organising a run. It's still quite similar. There's still Ayrshire particularly. There's a lot of shifting about. Like
I was through in the Borders there in June. I was helping Willie Dixon do a course, and while I stayed there that night because it was a 2-day course, and I got out with Willie in the morning as he was going to set his shearers off. Like, and I just thought, what a well organised run that is. He could put shearers in, start at 7 o'clock in the morning. You like just do the New Zealand system, 2 hours, your breaks 2 hours. But big sheds. You know, a lot of big sheds and well organised. Well, Tom Wilson, I think that'd be Tom Wilson's run that Will took over at the time, like, and it was all well organised. But a lot of bigger flocks out there, you know, over on this side of the country we were talking.
Yeah, it's big sheep country. We're dairy cow country, like you say, or certainly a lot of cattle.
And you were going, maybe you could start off in the morning and shear 200 mule ewes, and then you're away doing 200 blackie hogs, and then you might be doing 150 Texel cross ewes. So just, you know, just hard to get into a standard type of sheep for a whole day, never mind a whole week.
Can you mind what you were charging for shearing back when you started?
Probably a bit. And the funny thing was, you charged a bit more for a cross ewe than you did for a blackie.
Right.
And I could never understand that.
No.
I think at the very start we were about 35 pence for a blackie and 40 pence for a cross ewe.
Right.
And I think it was all to do with the price of wool.
Right,
you know, it would be based on the price of wool at one time. And because the crochet fleece was worth a wee bit more, you were able to charge a wee bit more.
Right,
But
okay.
in actual fact, if you get into bare belly mule yows, you were shearing them quicker than you could shear a blackie.
Aye.
Okay?
Yeah.
I know, it's interesting that, I would have thought maybe if anything...
And then you'd a bit, there was actually quite a few pure Suffolk flocks at that time. And in your first kind of week of the season, you'd be doing some mule hogs or that, but we did a lot of Suffolk yows, big Suffolk yows, like, and you always charged a bit more for them, right enough.
And can you remember who your first customer was?
Well, Beachy. If you ask Beachy will say that James has been going there for more than 30 years. He's never missed he's maybe missed a day in a year, but he'll never been a year that he hasn't missed there. Beachy would be one of them. Probably the first one we had is no longer, he hasn't got sheep anymore. But no, some have been going to for a long while, Ken.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, James, again, mentioned him, he's still at it.
Oh, I know, unbelievable.
He's 55,
Aye.
54. What age are you, John? You've not even told us that yet.
58.
You're 58, are
He'll
you?
be 55.
You're wearing well.
I think he's 55 last week. He'll be 55.
Oh, was it his birthday? I missed it. There we go, 55. That's right, because it used to be a time... I mind one year I was in Norway and we put a sign up at the roundabout for his 50th.
Aye, that was right.
Mind that? Aye, but I was in Norway and I got some... Big Stevie did it for me, actually. So yeah, James, 55. And you're talking about your father needing a new hip. I was going to make a joke about it being hereditary. Although James is more to do with a quad bike incident. But, new hip last year. Bugger's still shearing now. Still crutching in it. Still in... He'd be there yesterday, I would think. 8,000 lambs in, so...
But that's the thing, you're talking about that fitness, like, that's another thing. The young shearers, I remember when we started shearing, all farmers say to me, oh, your back will be buggered by the time you're 40. Okay. But see, it's just like you're saying about athletes and sportsmen. They're actually looking after their bodies a lot better because they're trained to do it.
Yeah.
See, my father, as I said, I didn't want to go away to New Zealand because I thought I would need to be there at home because my father wasn't that fit. Well, by the time he was 58, he would have at least had one new hip. Maybe, and he'd have one hip done 3 times actually.
Oh my goodness.
Aye, but it's funny, just at New Year, you can reminisce, and I was sitting with my wife Alice, and I was saying, I could actually drop dead tomorrow, but I think I'm actually reasonably fit, Ken, for 58. Ken, what I mean? But
Yeah.
Why are you laughing, Iona? Were you laughing at about dropping dead, or the fact when he said you're reasonably fit?
compared to when you look back at the previous generation, like my father, I don't think he would have been able to run when he was 58,
Oh, definitely.
But that was, when you think of the things they used to, I was at a funeral there last week, a family funeral. I was talking to some of the old boys that used to work at the farm or go about, and they used to carry 16 stone bags of barley up the granary steps, that kind of stuff. Like, it's no wonder these guys' bodies were knackered.
Well, it's like my father, he'd buggered hips, bad shoulders, sore neck, just years of carrying stuff. Someone said a great thing. We talked about the Succession podcast we did, and somebody either wrote an email or a comment and said one of the worst things ever to happen to the Succession thing was the round bale, because before the round bale it was all wee bales. And the farmer was buggered by the time he was 50, throwing the bales about. But see, when they brought the round bale in and they made it tractors, and the farmer can go now to 70 and he's no buggered. So there's definitely something in what you're saying there. How often are you lifting a big heavy bag of feeding or everything's...
I remember when
the
I was a
snacker
boy,
on the bike and...
used to come back from school, and my dad would been in at the agricultural merchants at Maybole, and they would have lifted 50 kilo or 100 weight bags of fertiliser, manhandled them out the store onto the trailer behind the tractor, driven home, then they would have manhandled them off the trailer and built them up in the shed, and then when it came to the spring and they were spreading it, they'd manhandle them back out the shed and put them in the spinner. The manual work was unbelievable.
But to me, that is one of the beautiful things about sheep shearing, is that they just cannot come up with a solution to it.
No, that's right. They can make it easier. Make
it easier, but the technique's better. And when you were hitting on it there when you're talking about people saying your back would be buggered and a sore back, and people just think that because they've tried it and their technique's terrible, so their back cripples them. But actually, if you've got good technique, you're not bent over that long. And you're constantly moving through the sheep. It's like when you're doing your beginner courses, and when I was a beginner on the course with you, I'd never shown a sheep in my life till you showed me how to shear one. And I was buggered. Again, hamstrings in agony, back's in agony, because you set the sheep up, you go to start the machine, it kicks away, and it's like, set the sheep up again, reach for your handpiece, you go to take that first blow, you're poking away daft.
Oh, no, on your
It
backs.
kicks like mad. Sit the handpiece back down.
Yeah.
Whereas,
serious.
you know, the instructors, boom, boom, belly's off. Away you go. You're like, oh God, one day.
Still chasing that day.
And it's hard. It's hard for boys. It was even hard for me to like watch you shear a sheep and think that someday I'd be able to do that.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
right.
like because you're so far away from it when you start.
Oh,
you know, I
definitely.
can hardly get the belly.
Aye,
you know, I only got a blue seal my first course. You know, I wasn't even good enough for a bronze. Getting the belly off alone off of the wild mule hogs or blackie hogs, unbelievable. And you're watching John doing a demo, and it's just round, and you start to doubt yourself.
That must have been one of my better demos.
aye, you're warmed up, but then, you know, I'm doing your you watch John, and you start to think to yourself when you're in agony. You start to think, oh, maybe I'll not be able to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to have that mindset. You have to really
But
give yourself a
It
slap.
works both ways as an instructor, and you're thinking, why can you no bloody do that?
I know. I could never take a beginner course.
Aye.
I came to one. Marissa, who works with us,
Aye,
did one with you last year, and I stood in for an hour or so and tried to give a couple of pointers and that, and I was like, John, I'll leave you to it. I cannot stand here, and it's so difficult to explain.
Yeah.
An advanced course is more enjoyable because the boys and girls generally know how to shear.
That's right.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So it's easier to fine tune things.
Definitely.
That's true.
Because they know what you mean.
Yeah, of course.
Aye.
But it's even just trying to get folk to put that first leg through under their ass cheek. Oh my God.
The belly's the hard bit. Once you master the belly, the rest kind of falls into place. But getting somebody to master the belly to start with is pretty hard.
Nightmare.
It's all destroying.
Sometimes it is anyway.
But yeah, and you've got the patience for that thing, which is to your credit. But you didn't shear. How did you stop shearing?
Well, all the time we were shearing, we were building up the business, you know, and a bit like yourself, Cammy, we took on a lot of. Because it was farming with my brother, we always had this big plan that sometime in the future we'd split the business up,
Right,
and
okay.
we'd have a farm each. So at that time, we were just building up. Well, as I said, we started off with 30 dairy cows and 150 cross ewes, and that's what we had. That's what we started with, like. And then all the money we were making for shearing was going into the business, and we were buying stock. And just before we split the business up there, we had 300 suckler cows. Well, the dairy had long gone, like. With 300 suckler cows and we had about 2,000 ewes, plus a lot of finishing cattle and all that, you know. But mostly on rented ground, to be fair.
Okay.
So it was your own way. You couldn't do everything right. And when we have a hill farm there, and we got it in 1996. And I always remember the old shepherd that, well, he wasn't shepherding just before we got it, but he'd shepherded the farm years before. An old fella called Geordie Watson. You probably know him.
Yeah.
He went to Peyton the Craigs, and
Yeah.
he brought out a lot of deer tups there. But he'd started off shepherding at Blair at our hill farm.
Right.
And I remember at Ayrshire, just that spring, we had been notified that we'd go to the farm. And Geordie come up to me in the pub and he says, "Oh, well done, boys, you've got that farm." And one thing he said that I always remember, he says, "If you look after the stock, they'll look after you." And it was always something that stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a while there when we were away shearing, you just think, are we doing things right? You know, you're just trying to do too much, and something had to give. And I just decided one year, like, no, we need to spend more time at home now and look after things again, because we've got a lot of stock there. And there was a time there when we were building up numbers, there was a time there sheep weren't very valuable. You know, I can remember that, I don't know what year it'd be, but I remember all blackie ewes making £2, cast ewes making £2. You know, and you could have bought 200 black face ewes for no a lot of money and a blue face Leicester tup.
Aye,
And you had a lot of mule ewe lambs.
Yeah.
aye.
You know, stock wasn't worth a lot of money. I'm not saying that we didn't look after them, but if you lost one, it wasn't really a disaster. But every
Compared
stock's
to what
worth a
you
lot.
could make from a
But-
day's shearing, you meant?
Aye,
Yeah.
compared to what you can make for a day's shearing,
Yeah.
you know. So something had to give, and I just decided that I need to spend more time at home. Plus, I actually had an accident. That had been 2009, I think. It was a right hard winter, and I was out feeding the sheep up in the field with a tractor and feed wagon, and the tractor took off with me in the snow, and it careered down the field. And I was, you know, if you're ever in a tractor, there's always these signs in an event of overturn. Hold on to steering wheel, don't jump out. And this tractor started going down the hill sideways, and I'm just gripping on this steering wheel. Well, I went right through the hedge at the bottom of the field, and there was about a 10-foot drop onto the main road.
Oh my
And it flipped right over, and I was inside it, like, and I broke my pelvis. Well, I cracked it. I cracked my pelvis, so I was off the road for about 2 months, and that was sort of January to March. And I did wonder if I'd ever shear again. But actually, was 100%, like 100%.
Did you need to get a new hip?
No.
No.
I always remember that when I was in the
It
hospital.
seems to be a wee trait here with the Andrew boys.
Aye. When I was in the hospital, the doctor, I always remember the day I came out of the hospital, the doctor says to me, right, he says, Mr. Andrew, he says, I know what you farmers are like, but he says, will you promise me you'll not do anything for 8 weeks? Because he says, this is critical. He says, this could be life-changing for you, what you do in the next 8 weeks. And you know, see, for the first time in my life, I actually listened, and I didn't do anything. And we had a boy helped us, and we got by. And it was 100%. My pelvis came 100%. I was back shearing that year. But it was just between that accident and just far too much to do, I just kind of stepped back for a bit. And then, well, Stephen Dunlop kind of took my side of the run over then.
Yeah, and obviously you and James sort of split the run. Well, you had it split anyway. You were running your own trailers, although you had a run together. Because there's always a thing, and other people, you know, there's a lot of names getting mentioned here and things that are pertinent to people in Ayrshire, and a lot of nostalgia that they'll enjoy. But my connection with John and James would be that they used to shear the sheep on the farm that my dad worked on.
Right, okay.
And don't get me wrong, we did plenty of days standing about waiting for them to turn up. But as a wee boy, you know, I'd always get the day off school, or, you know, I'd be there for the shearing. And the gossip before it would always be standing about, everybody hoping that John and James would both be there.
Why?
Because they'd go like hell.
Right,
You know, like they'd really go to town on it, and it'd be like they'd race each other. The poor guy on the third stand would work away quietly, but you'd get an
a bit saying Michael Logan here.
You'd get an early finish. Well, it was Michael Logan, or it would have been Michael. Well, or Andrew Dunlop, or Andrew Dunlop, Kiffer, all these names. And that's another thing we'll touch on, is how many boys you've got started. But yeah, and it would be, you wouldn't mind them turning up late if they turned up together.
Yeah, okay.
Because you'd be like, it's fine. These
They'll
boys
make the time up.
and they'll get it smashed out. We were a bit pissed off that year. You turned up just you and Andy Dunlop right enough to do 800 sheep. It was about 800 odd sheep, and
turned up at dinner time. You managed it.
You'd been somewhere earlier and you did 5:12, I think. 5:12 or something that day. Aye. So that actually made the day, because it became quite exciting. You going for 500, so it kind of made the day, even though everyone else was. I think more the boss was annoyed all the overtime he had to pay for the staff. I was enjoying it as a wee boy. I thought this is great. And we mentioned a few names there, but I mean, the amount of young folk that have been started on an Andrew shearing trailer in Ayrshire, like, will be huge. You know,
well, when we started off, it was James, my brother, and myself, and that was another thing. That was just a trailer was a novelty back in the day when we started. A trailer was a novelty, just because as
by
I
that
say,
you mean a shearing race trailer.
A shearing race trailer, because all the farmers were shearing their own sheep. So I don't know where this idea these trailers were starting to talk about. So maybe their second season, we built a trailer. I could tell you a funny story about it, actually. It was myself, James, and this other fella, Alistair Canlish, that sheared at that time. Alistair stuck it maybe a couple of years, and then he got a chance to take over his father-in-law's plumbing, his plastering business, so he went away to that. But anyway, with this trailer, and there was a jack in every corner, and it was kind of trailers we've got now, you shove them up and you put a pin through the jack, you know, with the holes in it. But these ones that were just, we actually get the chassis of the trailer made by an engineer, because we thought we better get this kind of road legal, and then we made all the race. Kind
of road legal.
Aye. So there was a jack, he'd made it with a jack in every corner, and you just put a screw in like an Ivor Williams jack, except it wasn't done kind of serrated way, you know, it was just a smooth jack. So we come out of farm, it wouldn't be the first day we used the trailer, but by the first season, we come out of farm at one side of Dalrymple, and we're heading into the village of Dalrymple, and there's a wee humpback bridge just as you come in, right? And there was a set of traffic lights on the other. We could see this set of traffic lights on the other side of the bridge. You know what it's like? The lights at green, so you think, I'm going to make that. I'm going to make that light before it changes. So there was a compressor. It was either the water board or the council was working, and there was a compressor sitting on this side of the road, and the water board man was standing on the other side of the road. Like, it was jackhammering, he's breaking up the tar or whatever. So, of course, I think I was driving, right, I'll make that green light. So, just over the humpback bridge, and the trailer gave a hell of a bounce. See, unknown to us, one of the jacks went down onto the ground, Ken. So, we go straight through the green light, and this cable, this hydraulic hose through the compressor, the jack. So, we goes along with the trailer, and the hydraulic hose wrapped around the jack of the trailer, and this guy's sitting there like, all of a sudden, the Kango hammer whopped to his hand. And we're away up the street, totally oblivious with this hammer trail behind the trailer. You see, So of course at the top of the street we had to turn left, and as we turned left, this obviously went out in a big arc behind us, and seemingly, well, I don't think this bit of the story is true, but when we spoke to the waterboard guy, he comes screaming up behind us in the van like about 2 minutes later, shouting and swearing and cussing. And he maintains that this hammer had gone up the pavement, and this poor woman's walking her dog down the pavement. She had to jump out.
Yanking the wee Yorkie.
I think that bit was exaggerated, but we definitely put that Kango hammer out of the guy's hand.
My
Now
God.
that would be good content.
Yeah, that
That would be great content.
So that was the kind of laugh you have, Ken.
You can laugh about it because the wee woman survived. She managed she hadn't jumped.
So that was the first go with the trailers, and then we built 2 or 3 trailers after that.
Most foragers don't supply sheep and cattle with enough cobalt, copper, iodine and selenium, critical to digestion, immunity, reproduction and growth. When it comes to supplementation, there's a danger of under or oversupply. But when bolusing with Animax Tracesure, you can be sure every animal has enough for up to 6 months in one single application. Animax, giving what it takes.
So you're saying about the race trailers.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously had this custom built race trailer. Would you say, have you guys ever had a road legal shearing trailer?
Well, mine was usually all right, like, but I don't know about my brothers. The funny thing was about, well, like my older boy Ewan, you ken Ewan, well, Ewan was good with the welding, like, and well, he made Cammy's trailer for him. And it was maybe 3-4 years ago, James said to Ewan through the winter, he says, you wouldn't maybe sort my trailer up for me before the season starts? And Ewan says, aye, okay, right, no bother. So bring it over. So Ewan worked away to it for a good 2 or 3 weeks. But just when he was at the uni, just when he had time. So he did this trailer all sorted up, and it was lights on it. He'd even put the wee lights along the side. You can the wee indicate
Side light things
right along the side. He did it all perfect. So he went into Jenkinson's to get a number plate for it. But because he didn't have the V5 document for James's pickup, they wouldn't give him the number plate.
Right. Okay.
So that night, James phones him up and says, "Is my trailer ready, Ewan?" I says it's ready, but the only one thing you need to do is you need to go via Jenkinson in the morning and get a number plate because they wouldn't give it to me. So James comes in and picks the trailer up. Wouldn't have time. Away up to Kilmarnock somewhere. Do you know he got stopped with the police that day for not having the number plate? Honestly, he got stopped with the police that day for not having the number plate in his trailer, and he would have run about for 10 years before.
10 years before.
Right, so
Can I just say 10 years before and 3 years after?
Aye.
Without a number plate.
So he didn't have a number plate for all those years before?
No, that story is
lucky.
ridiculous because the trailer didn't have any lights or a breakaway chain, but the day it had everything but a number
But
plate.
a number plate.
He
He
gets
got
stopped.
right. Okay.
So actually, he'd be quite glad. He's like, that's just another plate. I'll take my
that's
ticket. It's weird, that, isn't it?
That is weird.
That is a crazy. He has been lucky.
Now there was one day we had 2 trailers exactly the same, and we had 2 squads out at that time, and it was probably me, Andrew, and somebody else had come in with this one squad and hitched the trailer off, in for our tea, and everything ready to go in the morning. So James had come in maybe a wee while after us and hitched his trailer off beside us. Of course, we get in the morning, hitched his trailer off on the way up to where we were, and we're going up the bypass, and there was an accident, I think, or there was police stop sign or something. And of course, there's plenty of police standing, and they turned the signal to let us go through. And of course, Andrew's saying to me, "Good job, the trailer's good. Can we check that trailer last night?
Aye.
Everything's fine." Unknown to us, James had a puncture in his trailer. So we Kiffer, being Kiffer, had decided he'd whip the wheel off one of our trailer. Right? So he whipped the wheel off our trailer and put it in his trailer. And unknown to us, we were away with a trailer with 3 wheels on it. Right up by the police. And I don't know how they never stopped us. Because it wasn't until we got to the farm. The farmer says, "You can hear a wheel short." Oh, shit, that must have fallen off in the road. But when we get back that night, they were all laughing.
They
and
thought it was
joking.
hilarious.
They thought it was hilarious. We didn't think it was very funny, but they thought it was hilarious.
It's great. It is great the things that shearers think are acceptable jokes. Like some of them are so bad. Yeah, but I can imagine the boys doing that. And ironic, the thing is, James is just telling you not to worry about it. He's done it 100 times. It runs fine on 3 wheels. The amount of times we've taken a wheel off the light side to put it on the heavy side just to get us to where we want to go. One side you have to have 2 wheels, but the other side's actually so light you can't get away with 1 wheel. The amount of times we've done that, I tell you. This is all just theoretical talk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? This is all
What could happen?
Yeah, this is what we might have did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that did happen.
No, of course not.
But yeah, so yeah, we'll talk a good bit about shearing there. It's obviously was a good earner, got you building a big business. One thing I always found unbelievable when I was shearing with James was that he was doing all that shearing. I mean, it was, you know, you'd stopped at this point, so he was only one out of 2 that was doing the shearing run. And it, you know, he does knock his pan in. Like I always say this: there's nobody in Ayrshire who's working harder than James. I'll absolutely stand by that. The only man that I maybe know that could top him is Lance Armstrong, but he's not right in heed either. The two of them are absolutely bloody mental. But he would be knocking his pan in shearing all day, and the money would just go into the mixed pot. You know, which I thought, God, it's so hard to keep yourself motivated when, Ken, no matter how hard, it just goes into the mixed pot with you and him.
But then
all his bills come out.
Somebody had to look after the business.
No, I totally agree. And, you know, and all the bills come out from there, so that was fair. But I always found that I could never understand how he keeps so motivated to keep pushing on, doing all this work when it actually wasn't. It was shared, you know. So I'm sure he must.
And
from the split, it must be better as well.
The work he did when he did his crutching in the winter time, that was his own money. Like,
right, aye. But
it was
like,
shearing in the summer.
But that shearing going into, I always thought, like, God, how he stays motivated to go, like, and we've discussed this with David, who is your son, we're getting him there in terms of shearing. He's quite keen now, I think. He's out with me most days. And anyone that's been watching the sheep game, they'll know David. He's basically the guy that I always have shearing with me when I'm working in Ayrshire. Very good shearer. But, you know, I think you've got a good system set up now where it's a more incentive for him that, albeit now he's a partner in the business, so it's probably different again, right enough, but it's incentivising these boys to come out and knock their pan in so that they can actually see a pound at the end of it rather than it just goes in a big pot. And then they're like, well, whether I go out today or not, I'm still as well off tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's getting the mindset right. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the difference between David's generation and my generation. Going back a bit here, David probably started shearing when he was 15 or 16.
Yeah,
you know, just be watching me and jumping on and doing a few at home, and I could see his potential. And he went in a couple of courses, and then maybe when he was 18, 19, he would out with James a couple of days. And just as you're saying, it was tough going, and he was a big boy. Like, he was tall,
right.
and his back was going on him serious.
He's probably shorter than me. But.
And I always remember he went to a course with Colin McGregor. And I says to him, right, you coming in that course? Because Colin McGregor's coming down to help me with this course. He come, I'll maybe come for one day. And he come down and he walked away, and Colin says, your boy's a bloody good shearer. And see, at dinner time, he just packed up and put his shirt on, and that was him. His back was too sore. Like,
aye.
Really?
And Colin says, well, we can't force him. But if the boy's back's really bad, he says, there's no point in forcing him. So he went out 2 or 3 days, and James would phone him up, you can come and give me a hand this afternoon. And I was away, and I come back, and his mother said, David was away. He's just said he's not wanting to shear. That he's quite happy to do his onions at home, but he's not wanting to shear. Like, he's not that keen. And I says, well, I'm not going to force him. Because if you force somebody to do something, it's just sicken them.
And they'll rebel against you.
But then all
of
a sudden, maybe the year later or the year after that, he got a bit better at it. And he went back and he did a couple of courses. Then he went to a couple of competitions. And he won the juniors at Les Mahago.
Right.
And he did well in the intermediates. Then he won the young farmers, and say now, different altogether. He's talking all the time, I'm going out shearing, about shearing all summer. Me and Jock Welsh is doing this, or I'm going out with Cammy. And
yeah.
you know, just
do you think
it's just his fitness, because he's fit now.
It's fitness as well, and also he's getting better all the time at shearing.
I know.
So your back doesn't bother you the same, like we touched on earlier. When your technique gets better, your back doesn't bother you.
Because it's all rhythm, like, and you're not bent over the same all the time.
Yeah, and he is bloody good. And it also helps that he has. We mentioned another name now. We're throwing a lot of Ayrshire names in. He has Jock Welsh.
It's camaraderie, like.
Well, I don't know if it's camaraderie or just like you just want to spite them all day. It's that thing. Archie's old thing. It's like all day you hate them.
I know.
They're your best mate. But you hate them all day, you're shearing.
Yeah.
And then you're pals again at night. And that's good, you know, because waste of time I'm trying to catch me.
Because you know, we've all been there. When you're shearing, there's some days you think, you get into bad sheep, and you think, what the hell do I do this job for?
Aye.
But then there's other days, as they say, you're racing the guy in front of you, you're having a bit of banter, or you're saying, that was a rough sheep you put off or something like that, you know, it's just,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what keeps you going,
Yeah.
gets you there.
And that's one thing I like about shearing with David is as much as there's days he'll come and have a wee run at me, but he keeps the job right. You know, there's a lot of boys
Well,
that
I
just
heard him quoting something the other day, and I can't remember where I heard this. It might have been when I was in the shearing course in New Zealand all the years ago, but it was definitely was in a shearing course. And this guy says to me, he says, "See, when you're starting to shear, learn to be tidy." He says, "Because if you get into a farm and you farmer's sheep and you make a rough job of them, or you either cut them or you lay a lot of wool and you make a right rough job, in that farmer's eyes, you're a rough bee, right?" Now he says you could really come on and be one of the best shearers in the world, but see in that farmer's eyes, you're still a rough bee.
Yeah,
You can,
yeah.
but, you know. So I heard David quoting that the other day. I always remember when you told me that.
Aye, aye.
You start off, keep the job right.
Farmer doesn't care how fast you go,
No.
within reason.
No,
he cares
that's
about
right.
what the sheep look like
Yeah,
when you
so
leave.
true.
Very, very true. And that's another reason I don't mind. I like taking David with me because he makes a job. Like he does. He'll push on me and it's good to see that fire in him that he wants to come after you. Do you know what I mean? I usually just stay a couple of heat just to keep him, you know.
Here we go.
I always say, he'll love this. I always say the carrot's better than the stick, you know. Just have it dangling in front of him there, you know. He might get me. If I break a comb, he might have me.
He keeps telling me.
I'm
he says-
terrified. I'm in the gym now because I'm worried he's going to beat me.
He keeps telling me, he says, oh, Cammy started talking to the farmer because he knew I was going to beat him, so he had to have an excuse to say that.
Look at his face.
I don't think I've ever. I'm saying that I don't think I've ever stopped to talk to the farmer and he's beat me. He's never had a sheep room with once. I'm just trying to clarify that. That's how passionate it is,
I
isn't
know,
it?
that
all the
was
banter.
serious
It's like-
like that.
It's all banter until somebody's questioning somebody potentially beating you at shearing. All of a sudden you're like, no, there's no banter here, John. Get him in here. Phone. Who's got a phone? But yeah, him and Jockey have good banter and good racing. It's going to be an exciting summer for them because, I think the Ayrshire sheep shearing market's fairly opening up, so there's going to be a lot of sheep for them to get through. But so you got the split done, so to speak. We should really just go back on track with that. You got this split done, you borrowed a lot of money. Now, one thing I want to ask you is this was before, this was before interest rates went crazy.
Yep.
How did that hit you?
Well, we're quite lucky because we'd fixed some.
Okay.
When I'm going back like 10 years, when we bought the farm in the Croon, the 100 acres I was talking about, the banker said to us at the time, "You want to fix this?" And I says, being a gambling man, like, I'll just go variable. Well, at that time, I think we could have fixed that about 6% or something away back in 2009.
Right.
Well, we went variable. Well, you know what happened to interest rates. And we had a great deal because we actually, at that time, bankers were desperate to do business with you. And
Right.
we had been with the Royal Bank for years and years and years. And they just changed manager, and the deal they put in front of us, weren't that happy with it. And my accountant says, try Lloyd's TSB there in the area. I know the bank manager, they're desperate for farming business. So I went to him, and he gave us a deal at 1.4 above base, which was unbelievable.
And base was only
desperate to get my business.
0.5 at that
But
point?
no, at that time it was about 5% the day we
Right,
bought the farm.
Okay.
And as I say, if we'd fixed it, well, it was maybe about 3.5 or 4, but we could have fixed it at about 5.5. I says, "No, I'm a gambler. I'll just gamble." And well, you know what happened? Interest rates come down to 0.5 and we're only paying 1.4 above base. If we'd fixed that then, it would have
So
been
you had
kicking
them below
myself.
2% interest at that time?
I know.
Yeah.
So that was a good buy.
Yeah.
So when we came to borrow the money again to split the business, it was the same scenario. You want to fix it. He went, and I said, well, if I'd fixed it the last time, I'd have been a big loser. But it's too big a gamble this time, so we fixed half it.
Right.
And I wish I'd fixed it on now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I keep consoling myself. Every time that payment comes off every month, I keep consoling myself and saying, but look what we saved when we bought that other place.
Exactly.
Well,
I
that's a good
think
attitude.
we're at our peak. I think the interest rates are at their peak. I'm not saying they're going to come way back down to where they were, but I think they'll maybe come back a wee bit.
Aye, that is all the talk.
Aye.
That is all the talk. It's going to ease a little bit. But what I'm not asking what your level of borrowing was, but I think it is good for folk to know what difference that interest rate made to your payments a month. Like, how much did that go up a month?
Probably about $3,000.
That's a lot more than I was expecting you to say. Jesus
Aye.
Christ. $3,000
But then-
extra just based on the Bank of England the guy just saying, well, let's make it dearer.
Maybe it'd be two, maybe a couple anyway. Aye. But if you're going from 0.5% to 5%,
Oh, it's mad.
well, you
Yeah,
can work
yeah.
it out now. There'll be folk out there doing the sums now, and they'll be working it out.
No, because they don't know what you borrowed.
But they can work it out.
But aye,
Doesn't matter.
even so, that $2,000 extra a month
But
on bloody interest.
For what? I just don't. How do they work out what interest is?
Well, it's to do it. It's like all borrowing. It's the risk, the lender's risk. You're paying for the lender's risk, aren't you, sort of thing.
I know, but how can it be? How can it change all the time? Why is sometimes it more risky?
Oh, well, it's not. It's because he's not fixed. He's not fixed the loan.
No, sorry. I just mean in general why interest rates can change.
Well, now they're changing them to
It's
stop
to
people
inflation.
to stop people spending money because people have too much money, and it's driving the price of everything up because they're spending like mad, which seems crazy in a cost of living crisis. I know
So confusing.
It's very confusing. It's almost makes no bloody sense. But that is to stop this crazy inflation we're going through just now. Is to basically crush people a little bit and to slow them down, which seems mad.
It does.
You'd think people being wealthy and spending's great, but it's about finding the fine balance. I kind of understand. I do understand. Yeah,
ask David when you've got him in, because believe it or not, he did a business and accountancy degree.
Oh, did he?
Well, see, at the time, David was actually quite clever at the school, like, and he sees parents, he tried to do the best for them, like, and his mother especially was determined that he should go and do something, you know.
Okay.
I could see he wanted to come back for the farm.
Was he always like that? Was he always involved with the farm?
Aye,
and stuff
definitely.
growing up?
Ewan, like my older boy Ewan, he was keen in the tractors, and he's great with his hands. Ewan's great with his hands,
bloody good engineer.
but he was always going to go away and do something engineering or something.
Right, okay.
Well, and he was smarter than David too.
David's quite clever too, right enough. But David didn't try. If David had tried harder, he'd probably.
He's such a good dad, isn't he?
He just lackadaisical.
He's a good dad. Dad can't say that one's smarter than the other.
No.
It's like, oh, David would have been smarter, but you know, aye.
I was going to say he takes it off his mother.
David
would. I'll not give a tea tonight if I say that.
I know. Both very clever.
So anyway,
and of course, you have a daughter, Ailey, as well. We better give Ailey a shout
aye.
as well. What's she doing?
She's actually.
Was it physio? No?
No. She went and did psychology.
Right.
But my wife Alison
Got my spelling wrong.
when she stayed at home. She stayed at home for. Well, we've got the three families only about 4 years apart between the three of them.
Right, okay.
So she stayed at home and brought them all up. And then after they got up a bit, she retrained. She's a social worker.
Right.
So Ailey did psychology, but now she's concentrating on social work. In fact, she just got a job interview yesterday and she just got her first job. She qualifies in May.
That's brilliant.
Brilliant.
So she's got a job. But it's quite interesting because Ewan's an electrical engineer.
Right.
And he works in Glenrothes, but he comes back at the weekend. He doesn't get a lot of company at his work, you know. So he he became a special constable. He was kind of inspired by this guy here to an extent. He became the special constable in the police.
Right.
So I tell you, with me being a farmer, Alison a social worker, and Ewan in the cops, we have some interesting conversations about this, you know. But you certainly see how other people live.
Yeah. We are in a bubble in farming.
It's quite sad.
We are in a bubble. Is he working in Glasgow?
He just works locally.
All right,
They
usually try and keep you
occasionally
local.
does a shift in Edinburgh if he's not coming home for the weekend.
Right.
But he works in Ayr and Maybole mostly.
Yeah. Good. See, I can imagine it. Well, I've spoken to you about it. Like, as a good novelty, like doing the special constable thing. You know, just going in for a shift, and it's when you know it's not, you don't have to do it every day.
No.
You can enjoy it and get involved.
Yeah.
He was away last week and he did he had a 3-week course. He was doing his blue light training. So he's done that too.
Have they?
Aye.
A special cop?
Aye.
Incredible. Never used to do that in my day.
So what is a special constable?
Yeah, we better explain that. So a special constable is essentially, you're not a volunteer because you do get paid for it, but it's kind of in that kind of fine line of...
I don't know if he gets
you get
his
a
expenses, I think.
You get £1,000 a year.
Is that what it is? Aye.
And I think the idea is you get £1,000 a year and you must do a minimum amount of hours to qualify for that.
Okay.
And then anything over, maybe you don't get paid for it. You could, but
I don't think it gets... I think there's something what you say about the £1,000 a year. He maybe gets a bursary or something. But
yeah, there is some sort of payment. But
he'll get his travelling. He gets travel.
Any expenses.
Yeah, it won't cost him anything.
You get all the training that a normal cop has because you need to for officer safety, and you get all the equipment. And a lot of people do it. A lot of people do it as a route into the police. You know, if you've been a special cop for a couple of years or a year or so, great. You're basically straight in the door. But it's also good for having on your CV. It's good for life experience. Like Ewan's doing it for you know, the life experience and to
So you
try
get
something
training,
different.
and then are you actively at...
You have all the powers of a normal police officer, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but you would always be paired with an experienced
Okay.
police officer, because even if you've been a special constable as Ewan has now for 6 years, I would say.
Not quite that. Maybe 3. I think maybe 3, Cammy.
Oh, was it after I left?
Aye.
Right, okay, so maybe that is right. There wasn't much crossover. So right, for 3, but even if you've been doing it for 6 or 7 years, you haven't actually done that much time because you just do the odd weekend and
Okay, right, yeah,
you don't
yeah.
actually have that much experience. So they'll usually put you in experienced cop, and
Yeah.
but yeah, you'll do all the things a normal cop would do. You just go to calls and take statements and deal with stuff. So it is a good option for folk. Like, it's actually a good option for farmers. You know, because it's flexible. You just go if you think, I have a free weekend, and you know I can book that weekend in. You just give them your time and.
Yeah, some dad, eh?
I was like thinking, what's my weekend off? My weekend off? Go and stand outside I'm trying to think of a nightclub. Go and stand outside the garage and suck Ayrshire. I must admit, as police officers, we could never understand why folk did it. It's like, but that's only because you're in the job. And I think it's fair to say the Andrews in general are fairly clever. Like, that's one thing I'll give you credit with. Like, they are. Like, I'll give you one great example there. I was trying to build a training pen for a sheepdog, right? And I'd measured the size. What was it I was working out again? I'd measured across the area I had, right? So the diameter of this circle. And I was trying to work out how many hurdles I needed to go round about. Now, my recollection, I was bloody good at maths. Like, that was my top subject. But I'm thinking pi r squared for working out the length round the outside.
Oh, but that would be the whole area.
But that's the area, pi r squared. So I'm speaking to James on the phone. He's like, "Wait, yeah." He says, "I'm just working at this. I'm trying to make this training pen." And bear in mind, James, as we say, he's 50 odd, not been to school at a long time, right? He's no need to know how to make the circumference of a circle. And I says to him, "I'm just working this out." It says diameter's that, so pi r squared will tell me how many hurdles. Like, no, it's pi d for the diameter.
Right, aye.
I just remember thinking, like,
I don't think I would have remembered that.
Aye, I'm like, why would James? Can you not been at left school at 16 likely or 17?
But that's still.
Oh, it's like it's like that's a 40 year. It's like, why would he know how to make the diameter of a circle?
You know, it's actually quite nice
Maybe
though
he
that
made his
there's.
own dog pen.
Aye, there'll be a reason. There'll be some bloody reason for it. But yeah, it's. I always just thought, God, these boys are sharp. Like, these boys are clever. So we've done the split of the business. You're being crippled just now by interest rates, but you're still in a good mood, so that's nice to see.
Well, I tell you
But
what,
lamb prices are through the roof.
Cattle prices and lamb prices.
Yeah.
You know, if we had budgeted, we wouldn't have budgeted for. Although we didn't, we probably had to factor in that interest rates could go up, but we didn't budget for the lamb and the cattle prices just to be as high as they are either. You know.
Yeah. I said this. I was actually doing a talk last night at TV at Dale Society Farmers Club, and it was good. I did loads of questions. It was absolutely fantastic. But one of the questions was about, you know, making it all work on rented ground, etc. And, you know, I said this, and I think I maybe said this already in a podcast. If sheep prices hadn't been as strong as they had been the last 3 or 4 years, I'd have had to give it up long ago.
Yeah.
Because it was just a black hole of losing money, even with sheep prices being strong. So don't be wrong, this year, if it stays the way it is, it's going to be a good year. But like I would have been out of sheep because you couldn't have kept it going. You couldn't have kept borrowing money and shearing for it just to go away down in the drain.
We've a lot of hogs left here at the moment, like, and
It doesn't need to show off, John.
no, but they were away at winter, and it really annoys me because we've got a complete closed flock. Right, the only thing we'll buy in every year is 2 or 3 tubs.
Okay.
And we'll drag them when they come in, right? So these sheep were away, just a local winter, and we had a couple of draws out them in January, these fattening hogs, and the dairy man wanted them off at the end of January. A good feel of turnips, so I bring them home to put them in turnips, and David says, these sheep are itchy. Okay? And they were all dipped before they went on, so they've obviously been in contact with someone. So I was angry, like, because it bothers me. It just angry. Oh, we'll have to keep them for, dip them and have to keep them for 49 days. Or whatever.
Yep,
so we just got to dip them, we dipped them that day. You know something? It's been a blessing in disguise.
Because they're worth so much more.
They're worth 50. Well, I'm terrified the trade's going to crash this week.
Nah,
Yeah,
no, it's
miss
not.
the boat.
It's definitely not.
But how the hogs have jumped, you can. We've probably 200 hogs more than we would have had.
We had some in on Monday there. 7 of them were Texels that were too lame to go. We sold some at New Year. Or just after New Year. 7 of them were too lame to go then. And that sale we averaged, I think, £120. £168. Just because there were 7 we pulled out with lame feet to give them a jag and put them out. I did £48 to them.
Oh, I know.
Mad.
See if you'd that crystal ball.
Oh,
I know.
Like the shed would be rammed full of lambs and you'd have just filled the hoppers until they were ready. You know.
The last year they didn't rise till we into April. Like,
that's
again,
it. Like, it's
Yeah,
a
you
crystal
can't.
ball. Like, but no, it's good for them. Just good. I always say, like,
we'd far rather get it in the ring, in the marketplace, as getting the subsidies. You know.
That's it. If they want us to get away from subsidies and start farming greener as well, I think filming a thing with the landlord, and the guy's whole ethos was brilliant. It's like, we can't be green if we're in the red. It's like farmers can't buy more efficient equipment, improve infrastructure
Aye.
if they're not making money.
Aye.
So if you want farmers to go greener and be more efficient, they have to make money. And that's always the argument of getting rid of subsidies. But if they ever potentially want to phase the subsidies out, this is what it needs to be. That's the reality.
But the taxpayer, this is what gets me like, they're talking about, for years there, the taxpayer funded the subsidy system. But they were getting cheap food because it was keeping the food cheap.
Yep.
But now, if food's all of a sudden scarce, and these subsidies are going to fund the environment and all these green schemes, what's the consumer actually going to get out of his or her money? You know, they're not getting cheap food anymore because this food's a completely separate thing. And I don't know how long they'll stand for it.
Listen, you know what it's like as soon as the shelves are empty.
Aye.
You know, they don't turn on us, they turn on the government and say, why are you not helping the farmer? Because we need they start to realise actually we need the farmer.
My father had a great saying, like, and it's maybe not politically correct to say this, but he used to say, what the folk are needing is a good starving.
Yeah, it goes to that thing. I know, and it goes to that thing Robert touched on. It's like the old farmers say, "Oh, we need another war." It's always that part. We need another war. You know, that'll frighten them.
But you know, Sam, I think the vast majority of the public are actually with us.
They are.
You know,
I think so.
It's a very vocal minority that speak up and have a go at us, like.
Especially in Scotland, we're still very rural here. You know, apart from there's a million people in Glasgow or 1.2 million in Glasgow who are very suburban and city-like, but most of us are surrounded by grass and farms. You know, most Ayrshire villages, Kilmarnock, Ayr,
we're more connected.
Lanark, out with Ayrshire, even any kind of big town. They're not a big town in the grand scheme of things.
You know your sheep game videos and all that, the number of the people with agriculture that follow you, like.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's great that they get an insight into that thing. But listen, we've done an hour and 13 minutes already. That's unbelievable, isn't it? We've not even talked about the monitor farm yet.
Right.
So we better talk about this monitor farm thing, because that was the initial thing we're here to talk about. Tell us what a monitor farm is.
Well, basically, it's funded by the Scottish Government, and there was 9. I think this will maybe be the 5th time or 5th or 6th time they've been on the go. It used to be a 3-year project. It's a 4-year project, and basically there was 9 farms selected across Scotland, and we sort of open our doors to other farmers, and we get access to consultants and different people who can come in, look at the business, and give us ideas how we could improve or how everybody can learn off each other. So it all came about. I was actually at an NFU meeting one night, and Christine Cuthbertson, believe it or not, was the group secretary at that time. And it was just at the end of the meeting, and she's on the other business, and she said, just to say that the new monitor farm money has become available, and that it's open for tender now, and they're looking for monitor farms folk to put their names forward. It would be great to get somebody in Ayrshire.
Okay.
And Willie and Alison Kerr, this meeting was in the coo shed. Willie kind of dug me in the ribs and says, you and David would do that? And I says, no chance. Because I went back to David the next morning at breakfast and just kind of said to him, Willie says that we could do that. And David took it right away.
Really?
He thought I was skin. He thought, why not? So I thought, so we put an application in, and they came out and interviewed us, and we got accepted. I think why we were accepted, one of the things we've talked about, because we'd split the business up, and that's a challenge for a lot of farming families going forward. So although we don't have to get any specific financial information, we haven't hidden a lot, I'll be quite honest with you. Folk can see how we did it, and it gives folk ideas. Plus we've got a lot of different kind of enterprises going on. We've got hill sheep, we've got low ground sheep, we've got suckler cows, and we've got finishing cattle. So there's a lot of things there we can work on. But it kind of goes back to when we were building the business up. We got to a stage, as I said, it was getting unwieldy. And big is not always beautiful. And I thought, right, we've got 300 acres of good low ground there, and we've got 1,300 acres of hill. We've got the makings of a really good system. And don't get me wrong, I think we make a reasonable job, but there's so many things we can do better. And I thought, why not try and make a better job of what we've got, is trying to keep getting bigger and bigger all the time.
Definitely.
So how it works is, the first meeting was an open meeting. All the farmers come along. Some of them might come back, some of them didn't come back. But you get a core group of maybe 12 or 15 farmers who form a sort of management group. And they meet more regular, and they look at the business in greater detail. And that's when we'll start and say, well, why are you doing this with your suckler cows? One of the things was, we've 150 suckler cows there, but when we split the business, we were just doing about 115. So for the last 2 years, just about every heifer, if it was a Simmental cross or Solaire cross or whatever, she was getting bulled just to build the numbers up. So we've got some kind of ropey cows there, you know. So one of the things we can really look at is how we can improve these suckler cows.
Okay.
You know, so we should probably be starting weighing calves and just keeping the heifers out the best milky cows and things like that. So technology's a fair bit to do with it. Another thing we're bad at, we probably haven't got a lot of knowledge of all the grant schemes that are actually out there. But see, once you get these consultants involved, they can tell you, you know, why you could apply for a grant for that. You know, set aside that wee bit as a wildlife habitat, but still graze your cows on it. And different things that, and all these things are made, you know, available to everybody in the group. So different farmers can see different things and say, well, if you can do that, I can do
I'll
that.
try it.
Yeah.
You can. So, you know, come November, we'll be 2 years in. I'll be quite honest with you, I don't think we've achieved a lot yet,
Okay.
but I can see a lot happening this coming year. And we're probably at the stage now that we're actually needing the management group to actually challenge us. Because the first year, we were showing them what we do. And there'll be one or two things that we do that might have been quite impressive. I don't know. We had a field of red clover, which was really tremendous the day they looked at it. And some of the folk are saying, well, I'm going to try that. There's a lot of things we do that aren't so impressive, but we're needing the management group now just to come forward and say, right, why you got all the cow breeds going on? You know,
Yeah.
Tighten that up.
why are you calving at this time of year? Why are you doing that? Well, Cammy will tell you, with a good scanning with the hill sheep this year, we didn't have a particularly good scanning with the crow-shoes. We've looked at minerals. We've had blood tests done. Probably maybe just too sore in the ewes before turning time because we take them away to the hill. So different things. There's farmers on that group that are better experts than us in different things. So
Yeah.
it's also a great social thing.
It is.
As a community kind of spirit as well, you know. And folk love. It's hard to get folk to go to a meeting, but see if you ask folk to go to a farm,
Then,
come to it.
yeah, so true.
Then.
Yeah, and then once they get you to the farm, there'll be consultants there doing input. You'll have stations and you do different things like that.
things you look at, you know.
Yeah.
But
I
I must
think
admit,
Monica Farm's great.
I'm a wee bit a cynic, and I don't listen to everything consultants tell us, you know. But you can listen to them, but you don't need to act on them. But it is
Yeah.
good to
And that
get
defeats
an
the purpose of
outside
it.
set of eyes looking at your business and just saying, you know, you can maybe try this, or you can maybe do that, and you could. David and me could turn around and say, "Oh, that's a load of rubbish. You don't know the farm." But there's certain things they're saying. You know, Robert Ramsey came in the other day. He's doing a plan with our suckler cows. And we've been thinking about it. You know, we've 75 calving in the spring, 75 calving in the back end, and we've got Simmentals, Solaires, Lings, a few Belgian Blues. Why do you not just have the Ling cows calving in the spring? And you could keep them out in the hill a bit longer in the back end, and then keep your Simlings, breed your Simlings off them, and put them onto a Charlie bull to calve in the back end. And it's probably what we've been trying to do, but we're just needing a kick
Just
up the
need somebody to
backside.
say, get it done.
Aye.
Yeah.
They come one of the first things they did in the farm was they analysed the whole farm for PK and lime on a grid basis, you know, variable rate. And we were all sawing a bit of lime every now and again, like you put 50 tonne of lime on this field and that field. But when we actually looked at it, to get that whole farm up to about 6.5, we were needing 800 tonne of lime.
Oh my God.
You know, but with nothing really
This is at
bad.
Roundstone?
Most of the really poor ground was up at Blair, which is
Right.
understandable.
Yeah,
But
okay,
down at
yeah.
Roundstone, with some fields doing about 5.6, but which is bad enough, but no desperate bad. They'll be a lot worse. So 800 tonne of lime. He says, right, let's just do it over 3 years. So we're putting 10 tonne of lime on this year, 10 next year, and 10 the following year.
Okay.
So it's just giving us that incentive to do it. And he says,
Tax
right, we'll do that. We'll have to try and save our costs somewhere else to pay for that lime.
I
So
just
it's just giving you an incentive sometimes to do what you know you should be
Totally.
doing.
Yeah, but just clarify that. You said 800 tonne, like, then 10 year. You mean
So, 27 tonne of loads, so 10 loads is 270 tonnes, so 270 tonne
10
a
loads,
year,
you mean? So I thought you said 10 tonne. Aye, okay, 10 loads. Yeah.
10 loads over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
That'll be the whole farm done. That'll be, and then it'll just be a matter of putting in maintenance.
By
all
the
the time.
time you get that done, the rest of it will need 200
Well, I
tonne.
know.
Never ending the lime
Oh,
thing,
I
eh?
know. But the efficiency of your fertiliser by having the lime right, you know, will save a lot in fertiliser.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going to put a bit of lime on some bits this year, even though it's rented ground. I think it'll pay you back if you feel you have a wee bit of security with it. I think it's worth the investment. Yeah, even for I'm like a big fan. I think even for how palatable the grass is for stock, it's bound to help with that. If it's less acidic,
Clover, you get far more clover. Like clover's the thing.
yeah. I even wonder sometimes with feet.
Aye,
Do you know acidic soils can't be that great for the feet either.
Yeah.
But we'll soon find out. It'll be all on the sheep game. So yeah, how long's the Monarch Farm run for?
It's a 4-year project.
Quite a long time.
Aye,
Yeah.
so is it? But say come November, that'll be us 2 years in.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there'll be a lot of things like changing the suckler cows and doing things. There'll be a lot of things that at the end of the 4 years we'll just be starting to see them happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a lot of folk have said it'd be good to have a kind of legacy project, maybe in 7 or 8 years come back and say, well, how did that work out and what you do now?
It's like I love grand designs revisited.
You do.
You know, when they actually go back 10 years later and see if actually that stupid design they thought would be good
nice.
actually worked, if they're still living there, you know. So yeah, that would be good, that kind of legacy revisit thing. And you're 2 years in, 2 years to go. You don't get money you get a wee bit, but it's mostly the free.
You don't
everything's
get,
free. All your
nothing-
consultancy's
there's-
free,
I think there's a wee fund.
that's the big one.
I think there's a fund of 15,000 that you can rent equipment. You know, you can't buy any capital item,
Okay.
but you could rent like some technology to use for the period of the.
Okay,
But there's no. For instance, if we wanted to rent a Tapari, if we thought the Tapari was
I can sort that out for you, John. Yes, you can have my party for 15 grand for the winter.
I thought you
For the
might say
winter. Right, okay, so that's a wee fun. Yeah, but the big saving is because Robert's a fortune, so your big savings is like that's all free. That's all paid by the Monarch Farm.
All these consultants and that are covered.
Yeah, the Monarch Farm. So I mean, that's worth a lot. That's worth a fortune. Like
I
all
think
that.
it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's good.
But having said that, if I was doing it again, when we started in, right, you need to do 2 specialist plans. There's 2 specialist plans going to be funded for this project. So what are you going to do? And it's all kind of landed on us quite quickly. And you maybe didn't have a lot of time to think. And he says, oh, well, we need to do something with suckler cows. And we wanted to do some, well, it was more driven with the price of fertiliser about 2-3 years ago. We didn't sow any fertiliser on the grass and we just did it all with slurry. And we kept the fertiliser we could afford to buy for the silage ground and the crops. So it was actually it was a great success. The first year we grew a lot of grass. It was a great year for growing grass. Maybe didn't quite work as well last year. So one of the specialist plans we've got is a soil health plan. So we're analysing all the slurry and we're putting it on and seeing how much nitrogen, P and K we're putting on and see how we can do it and try and encourage the clovers and all that to come. And then, as I say, we're doing a specialist plan in the suckler cows. But maybe if we'd had a wee bit of time to think about it, I'd said, I'll just concentrate on the one specialist plan until we can think about what would really be useful.
Yeah.
You know?
I have a thing to put to you that I'm starting to put to more and more people just to see what the thoughts are. But do you not think if we could see some stability and looking like lamb prices stay where they are, is there not a lot of merit in see these sheds you've got filled with cattle? Is there not a merit in filling them with sheep?
Well, most of our sheds are slatted sheds, right enough, you know, so it'd be hard to put sheep in them.
But you just raise them up a foot, put the stilts in and put sheep slats on.
Well,
The infrastructure's there for sheep slats
But,
already.
uh,
You know, I wonder. I'm not saying that is the right thing. Sheep and
you're
cattle.
just not a fan of cattle, Cammy?
No, but sheep and cattle work great. If I had the
Aye.
sheds, I'd have cattle.
Aye,
Absolutely,
aye,
because you
aye.
need them. You can't just be sheep on a expansive hill blocks and that, but intensive farms in by sheep and cattle work great together. You know, they're a great balanced rotation. But I do wonder the way lambs are, if you can put and we spoke about this with Robert a bit, if you can put a milieu in there that's going to give you 2 lambs a year, 2 big lambs a year, and just feed her a mixed ration of more or less all they need, a good silage is all they need, and a couple of lick buckets. Like, would that pay better?
Get the rest of the grass. But see, this is
Don't even rest the keep all the sheep you have on the grass. I'm thinking put more sheep on. I'm not even thinking. Robert was talking about resting the grass, bring the sheep off the grass. I'm actually thinking it's just a way to put more sheep on.
But then isn't it supply and demand? If everybody then just starts having more and more and more
Well,
sheep,
overdone.
then it's going to overdone it and the price has to come down.
Yeah, well, but there's nobody wants the lamb sheep.
But it's like buying land and building a shed. Nobody's ever regretted it.
Yeah.
You buy land and you think, oh, I'll never be able to pay for that. But I don't think anybody's ever regretted buying land.
No.
Yeah.
And
that's
all
what
the regret ever building a shed, you never made it big enough at the time.
That's right. You never build a shed too big, and that's why I always think it's you don't regret buying land because generally it goes up in price.
Aye, that's right.
And that's why I always think it's so strange that it's so difficult to borrow to buy a farm. You know, for me to buy a farm, even with the most generous offer, which I believe is Oxbury Bank now at about 25% deposit.
Right.
But even with that, on a 1.2 million pound farm is 300,000.
Oh, I know,
but then there's stamp duty as well,
Aye.
and your fees and other wee things on there. So you're looking at nearly £400,000 you have to put in to get that. But like, it's not such a risk. I don't know what the big risk is for the bank. You know, what is the big risk that it needs such a big deposit?
I don't know.
It goes up in value so fast.
Right, exactly. Aye.
Yeah,
Well,
it's so true.
Normally it does.
Like, if I gave them 200 grand,
There has been time. I think
There
back
has
in the
been
80s, I
times.
think back in the 80s it come back with a crash at one time. Or
well, and
something.
there's the
Right,
2009 or
Aye, the bank crash.
the house prices
But the
plummeted.
trouble is, the
then.
price of land is all related to taxation. See if we get a change of government and the government decided to tax land or do something, all of a sudden it will go, or they'll take the inheritance, benefits off
increase or reduce the threshold.
Aye.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, that's interesting. Monitor Farm meeting. There is a Facebook page for Monitor Farm
it.
Scotland.
Monitor Farm Scotland, yep.
Where there is open meetings at Roundson Farm for anybody local that wants to come along and see it.
Aye.
Then have a look at that. We're well over our time there, John. Are you quite happy you've spoke about everything you want to speak about?
Oh, I think so. I hadn't told you all my stories right enough, but
No, but some of them I'm gonna have to cut out anyway. I think they get too personal, some of them. But no, it's been great cracking, and that's going to be a real special one for the people of Ayrshire because most of them will know the names that have been mentioned in this podcast and can really enjoy the tales and the nostalgia from the good old days. But it's been great to have you on. Best of luck with the rest of the Monitor Farm.
thank you very much. And it's been good being here.
Good
And
man.
I hope he pays you overtime since we're over the time there.
Cut that. And we're back. Interview done. Quite a long one there, but I could sit and talk to John for a long time.
Yes, that's
Longer
right,
time.
aye.
We're going to get him back again because he has more stories to tell. He's lots of good, interesting stories, and there's a lot of names. There's a lot of names getting thrown about there
Yeah.
that you know, and I know, but a lot of you guys listening won't know. But I think you can still enjoy the merit of the stories, especially the fun ones about his brother James, who we should get in the podcast sometime
Yeah.
because he would be a laugh. He's just a hard man to pin down. Okay, so next week we've got Davy Henderson from the Isle of Arran to tell us a bit about island life and problem with boats and have a good moan, so that's something to look forward to. Thanks again to Crystalyx and Animax for sponsoring the podcast. I've been Cammy,
I've been Iona.
and we are both
Fed
fed
by
by farmers.